What you are about to hear is highly classified. Pay attention and listen at all times. And most importantly, remember, if you have to run several gimmicks and several versions of those gimmicks all at the same time, there may just be a problem with your business model. Just saying. Ladies and gentlemen, you are now entering Zone 4.
And welcome back to the Zone. I'm Brant Fowler.
I'm John Wilson.
I'm Gordon Demowski.
And I'm Captain Ron Fortier. Hey, welcome to another episode of Zone 4, 259, I believe, Brant?
That is correct.
Wow, they're adding up fast. But hey, before we do anything else, we want to wish one of our amigos here a happy birthday today, right, guys?
Well, I mean, Ron, my birthday's not for a few more weeks, but...
And mine was last month, so...
Yeah, and mine's in November, so who could be having a birthday today?
Who's that leave? Chris? No, his is in the middle.
No, we are, of course, talking about Chicago's own favorite son, okay? And Doctor Who aficionado. Hey, Gordon, happy birthday, amigo.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's not so happy because I'm stuck here with you guys for the afternoon.
Nice retort.
You would love us.
Yeah, and just to explain to our listeners, one of the things that Brant does is he uses a calendar to organize weeks. So last month it was, for the topic, it's John's birthday. In a few weeks, the topic is, it's Brant's birthday. For this week, it was Green Hornet number 10. We are not going to be talking about.
No, not at all.
So this tells you, ladies and gentlemen.
The love in this podcast is just
how I'm regarded in the comic.
I love how he cuts out of these trying to defend himself here.
Yeah, and he's melting.
You're totally roboting out on us, Gordon. Sorry.
I'm like maybe I am like below Bill Gladman on the love-o-meter.
Oh, Lord.
Right, you have to date to get below Bill Gladman. That's pretty bad.
I didn't know when your
problem
was until...
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Now.
Okay.
Off and on.
Yeah, off and on.
I hate Skype.
Yeah, it is Skype. I didn't know it was your birthday until this morning. Sorry.
Thank Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Facebook and Skype.
Well, okay, Brant, I will forgive you this time.
Okay. So next year, if I forget, I'm really in hot water. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and plus you really can't trust Skype. I mean, Skype can barely keep our calls together, much less, I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't rely on it to tell me the sky is blue.
That's true. Actually, one time, this true story, one time I got a birthday notification on it, and I told the guy happy birthday, and he's like, well, that's nice of you, but my birthday's not for another month. Thanks, Skype.
Don't talk mean about Skype. It'll mess the call up.
That's true. Let's move on. We do have a sponsor this week.
Sponsor of the week.
But before we mention our sponsor, as I'm getting an incoming call now, really? Okay. We do want to mention that we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network. You can find us each and every week at comicspodcasts.com with a bunch of other shows, a lot of great shows over there, so check that out. And Hall of Toys is also over there every single month. So, proud to be a member of that. Alright, so our sponsor is once again Audible.com. And if you go to audibletrial.com/zone4podcast, you can get a free 30-day trial and a free pre-book download, and that does help the show using that link. And there are some great offerings. There's over 150,000 titles to choose from, including a bunch of Greg Rucka's novels. So if you're a big Greg Rucka fan, you can listen to Alpha, you can listen to Keeper, you can listen to Walking Dead, not The Walking Dead, but he wrote a book named Walking Dead, so you can listen to that too.
Oh,
so.
let me add my if you have. No, we're echoing.
Yeah, we're
If you haven't ever read a Greg Rucka prose novel, do so immediately. I mean, his comic work is exemplary, but as a prose writer, I mean, he's definitely one of the best thriller writers out there. I get everything he does.
Awesome. Yeah, so several of them, I know not all of them are up there, but I think 7 of his novels are on Audible. Very cool, very cool. And we do have one more sponsor, which is C2E2, which Comic Related has been involved with since the very first show, and we'll have a representation there this year as well. It takes place April 25th through 27th at McCormick Place, as it always does. And like I said, you can find us. I believe we're in Podcast Alley, right, John?
Yeah. Not sure where Podcast Alley is going to be this time.
Yeah.
I think part of Artist Alley.
Okay.
But we shall wait and see. They kind of move us around.
Yeah, I think they did send us our table numbers, but I don't have them in front of me, so I'll mention that next episode or something.
Right,
So.
right. And kids, remember, this is why you get programs. You look us up, you look up our number, and there'll be like nice maps where it'll guide you to us, and you can come and say hello and give us Nutella-covered bacon.
There you go.
Mmm.
Yeah.
That sounds good. John doesn't like anything bacon.
No, I love the bacon, but the Nutella?
I said anything on it, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a purist. I like my bacon all
Naked
bacon.
bacon.
That's right.
There you go.
I like my bacon like I like my women. Naked,
Sober, drunk, and bitter.
naked and slightly burnt.
Okay. Don't even want to know. All right, but yeah, you can learn more at c2e2.com. All right.
Segway.
So, did you guys get a chance to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this week?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Came back after the month hiatus during the Olympics, which, by the way, I just want to point this out. One particular website out there, which I'm not going to call out on the show, gave them crap about taking a month hiatus. And as we explained on the show, it was very smart for them to do that because it was during the Olympics. Their ratings would have plummeted, so, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with someone that it is killing their momentum with all these, breaks.
With the constant breaks, yes, I agree.
Yeah, with the constant breaks. But that was really an untenable situation. There was no way that they could have competed. I mean, even as generally dissed as the Olympics were this time out,
Mm-hmm.
I think anything up against them would have suffered by comparison.
Oh,
Right.
There's no question.
Right, and they weren't the only ones. I mean, every other network was running repeats and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, that's a good business sense right there. I'm sorry,
Yeah, no, that's smart.
Yeah. So anyway, they did come back. They left us with a cliffhanger with Sky.
As always.
Yeah, as always. But Sky shot and possibly dying and stuff. So we come back with Bill Paxton.
yay, Bill!
Yeah.
Which, this was an awesome episode. Even our good friend Bill Gladman said, this is the best episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. yet.
Of course it was. They were running around blowing things up.
Yeah, of course.
He
Yeah.
loves that.
But some cool things happened in this episode. What did you guys think of it?
Well, I liked the episode overall, but I you know what, guys? And I did. I really enjoyed it a great deal. But I got a nitpick about that stupid facility.
Okay.
Because, I mean, were those agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or not guarding it? And did they or did they not shoot them both? I mean, I'm waiting for the end to see at least, they're picking them up and putting them on the plane to give them medical care. But no, they all get on the plane, they take off. And Paxton shoots one in the belly. Sorry about that. And then Coulson comes up to the other one who shot, and he said, we'll get you medical aid.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, are they shooting other agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. here? What the hell was that all about?
Well, I mean, they did warn him, though. I mean, they said,
please.
we're going to defend ourselves.
And to be clear, one of the things that came out of the episode was they weren't sure whether that was an official S.H.I.E.L.D. facility or not. So those two guys might not have even been agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They might have been agents of the Clairvoyant.
True.
And plus, it's Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton shooting people beats everything. It's Bill Paxton shooting people. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, they did kind of gloss over the fact that Paxton was there to, essentially take over the ship and drag Coulson and the whole band, in for disciplinary action. He just switched allegiances immediately.
True, but towards the end he said, "You might see me sooner than you think." So
yeah.
That kind of leads me to believe that maybe that's still going to happen in some shape or form.
Well, yeah, he signed on to do more than one episode.
Actually, he's on 4.
Four episodes, yeah.
Now, I don't know about the best. My favorite moment in the entire episode was when May went into the holding cell and pounded the shit out of that asshole.
Oh, yeah.
I'm defenseless. Yeah, so is Sky. Boom, boom, boom.
Beat the crap out of him.
Yeah. And then, it was fitting that Ward said to her, "You don't let those blinds open that often." So, yeah, that was a nice scene, I agree.
Spoiler alert here.
Right.
So, Coulson saw what? An alien?
I have 2 options on that, but yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, well, I'll say one and you can say the other.
Okay.
There's two theories that I've seen bouncing around. One of them possibly being a Kree, which kind of makes sense since Ronan the Accuser is going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy. To tie that in, it makes sense to me anyway. So, and John?
I also thought it could possibly be an Atlantean.
Yeah.
A blue-skinned Atlantean. Hello, myself. I just reverberated back to me. But yeah, but someone was trying to postulate on Facebook that it was a life model decoy or something. I'm like, no, A, that doesn't make any sense. B, we actually saw guts and bones and, all that floating around in there.
Yeah, they were tapping that thing's DNA.
Yeah.
And I actually had to watch it again because I kind of wasn't paying attention. For some reason, I had it in my head that it was Coulson's body, and I had to rewatch to make sure that, no, it's actually a blue-skinned guy. It's not some weird blue-colored clone of Coulson. So
I looked at that, too. I was like, is that Coulson? No.
Yeah, I think that was the obvious choice. That's probably where everybody was thinking, and I'm glad that they do that.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Now, of course, we have 2 other acronyms to deal with as well.
True. Tahiti,
which, I'm waiting for my signed picture from Ming Na because I think I gave a pretty good acronym thing there. She was doing the thing on Twitter where she said the best 5 people that come up with what Tahiti stands for, she'll send them a picture. I thought mine was better than most of the ones that popped up there. And then,
what'd you put, John?
Oh, what did I put now? It was thought alteration human intelligence testing initiative. That's what it was.
Ooh.
That's pretty good, yeah.
So there's that, and then of course we have H or GH now too.
Right.
And I'm still trying to figure that one out. Because, nothing on there means just one thing. I mean, the ship is 616, which is the Marvel Universe code, so.
Yeah, it's got to be more. It's got to be less obvious than just standing for guest house.
Yeah. If it just stands for guest house, I will be a little disappointed.
I saw one person. I think they were reaching, but going back to the Kree theory, they listed the actual name of Marvel, which was like Jinhiris Hola Nola or something. It was GH. Yeah, basically they were trying to say. And I was like,
that is pushing a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's probably going to be something very basic like general humanoid.
Yeah.
There you go.
So,
But hey, and of course, a really good episode, aside from, the little bits and pieces, we've agged over. But again, not an epilogue. The epilogue was amazing. The epilogue was great. Yes.
I was not expecting an epilogue. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, me either.
And
we all knew what was coming, so I figured, we're going to get the trailer. But then when they do the desert scene and she comes walking out of the desert, I said, oh my God, we're getting an epilogue. I love it. That's awesome. Yeah.
And Lorelai, which I actually had to look up because I'm not a huge store guy. Apparently she's the Enchantress's sister.
Yeah.
She apparently back in I think it was back in the 70s and early 80s, she was used a lot, giving Thor a little trouble, and they had to go to the Enchantress to get help from her. Because I was initially thinking that she was the Asgardian that fell in love with the human from Braxton, Oklahoma, but that wasn't her. She's actually kind of a fairly big-time baddie. She had some dealings with Malekith.
Oh, wow.
The elf king. So, yeah, she's going to be a toughie, yeah. So definitely calling in Lady Sif was a good idea.
Yeah. And it makes, given what happens in the epilogue with the persuasion, that kind of makes sense that she's related to the Enchantress.
Yeah, she's... I think the general thing with her is she has magical powers, but she was always somewhat reluctant to use them. I think she prefers to go through intermediaries to do her dealings,
Gotcha.
So yeah, it should definitely be a good episode.
Yeah.
All the way around.
Well, yeah, it looks like she's gonna split and have the men fighting the women.
Probably, yeah.
Because you see Ward pulling a gun up, and May's like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, should be very interesting.
Pulling a gun on May, never a good idea.
No.
But just having Jamie Alexander, oh my God, that episode's going to so rock.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome. I'm looking.
Of course, in the day after, everybody or even during the show, people will be tweeting DC. That's what you missed out on. There's your Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's your Wonder Woman. You goofed.
Yep.
And maybe it'll finally give the haters pause and shut them up.
Oh,
yeah.
Please.
Well, just the fact that you can pull off a strong fighting female character. I thought we already closed that door with Xena. That it wouldn't be something that people are still debating after all this time.
Right. Yeah. And, another thing I've seen a lot with these past couple of episodes, a lot of discussion online, I want to give my opinion about it because I've seen a lot of people saying, finally we're getting the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that we want, and this is, what it should have been all along. And my thing is what we've said since day one is have a little faith in Whedon. This is what he's been building up to the entire time.
Yeah.
So,
right, you have to establish some kind of narrative foundation.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm sorry. Look at not his film work, but his television work.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the early episodes of Buffy. Look at the early episodes of Angel. Lesser so Dollhouse because it didn't really get as long, and obviously Firefly because they didn't get as long as they need to. But he does the slow build.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's his thing. He builds things up as they go along. The first ever episodes of Buffy definitely kind of slow.
Yeah.
In retrospect to what came later.
Right.
So, people just need to, get off them. And Steranko's at it again, of course. But they just need to get off the man and let him write his show.
Yep.
And the other thing, too, and I think people, and I know we'll talk about this later on in the show, what people tend to forget is television shows are not made to appeal to you specifically. They are made for a general audience.
Mm-hmm.
When people complained that it wasn't dark enough, this is a show that is going on during the traditional family hour, put out on a network owned by Disney, from a company owned by Disney. You are not going to get the X-Files Thank God.
How true, how true.
Yeah,
We
I
gotta
mean,
sell-
it is
we
an
gotta
8
sell
o'clock
the
show,
toys.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even so, I mean, they've been showing people saying that that this is where they wanted it to be the whole time. We've seen this level of violence and this level of graphic kind of stuff since episode 1.
Yes, we have.
So I don't get that argument. But whatever,
Hey,
each
look,
their own.
in the words of Stan Lee, Zone 4, we are the true believers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We were
Well,
from
even Stan
day one.
isn't a true believer.
Excelsior.
Even Stan isn't a true believer in the show, but, I think if they're smart and they give this a chance, that this will definitely be one of the shows that they're going to look back and go, okay, we were wrong. It's wonderful. Here we are in year 7 or 8,
There you go.
Please pass the salt. I want to season this humble pie.
Yeah,
It tastes a lot like crow.
All right, so moving on, we do have some comic book headlines.
Comic book headlines.
And some interesting stuff in the news this time. A couple of actually, Gordon, you pointed these out to us. A couple of big, what do you want to call it?
Kind of professional moves.
Yeah, professional moves. Rather. New titles for a couple of creators. We'll go with the lighter one first. Roberto Aguirre Sacasa becomes the CCO of Archie Comics, which Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's interesting because he wrote the whole Afterlife with Archie book, or he's writing it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking because Archie had such a reputation of being, let's face it, kind of white bread and stupid and juvenile, that it's interesting that now he's in Afterlife with Archie has actually gotten some kudos for being a little bit more adult. Well, as adult as an Archie comic can get.
Yeah, there's actually talk of a movie or a TV thing Afterlife with Archie.
Right. So to me that's interesting because now he's CCO, so he gets to put that kind of stamp on and kind of provide creative guidance for the rest of the range.
Mm-hmm.
And what's also interesting in this is that Paul Levitt, who was president of DC forever, seemingly, is now part of Boom Studios' board of directors.
Yeah, that's an interesting move.
And Boom, I'm going to say this, from a business standpoint, Boom's actually doing some really good stuff. I mean, last year they hired George Perez and made him an employee with benefits and stuff. So it wasn't, he was freelancing before, and even Perez says, hey, look, this is a great opportunity for me to do characters that I like. Paul Jenkins moved from Marvel to DC to Boom because he says, Boom's where creatively I can get quite a bit done. So I'm wondering if, and we'll talk a little bit about Image later, but I'm wondering if Boom now is what Image was about 10, 15 years ago. The company that's willing to take some chances, both in terms of content and as well as how they respect creators. So that's kind of why this headline kind of really really appealed to me.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting to take somebody that's was such a what's the word I'm looking for? Such a pillar at DC at one of the two major publishers, and bring him into your board of directors, and that's gonna, I don't know, that could have a huge impact on their operations moving forward.
Right,
Go ahead, John.
Oh, I was saying, I really hope that he can pull Boom out of the shadows.
Yeah.
Boom has been around for a while, but they are extremely quiet. They're not out there like like an Image or like a Dark Horse or something, touting how great their work is. I hope.
Oh, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I'm just hoping he'll bring some of that earlier DC sensibility to it to, you know, get people to look at Boom and appreciate it as much as, you know, as much as we do it, and not make it such a niche company.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you, except for their kids stuff, which I think is right now that's their big thing. I mean, they've got Garfield, Peanuts, Adventure Time, and all that stuff is really doing well for them.
And that's probably why they invited him to join the board of directors, because they probably see we don't want to be the kids comic company.
Right.
We want to be the all comic company.
Yeah. And
they have some good stuff.
Yeah, they've, you know, in the past year especially, they've really kind of branched out and brought in some different concepts. You know, we've talked about several of them on this show, and ranging, you know, from all ages stuff to darker stuff. I mean, they've had some stuff for a while. They've had like all Clive Barker stuff, which, you know, he's always putting out something. But you know, like with Damon and like with the title escapes me that we talked about, the first 2 issues on here. It was an all ages thing that I really enjoyed. And
the one with the imaginary character. Yeah, I can't remember the name either, but it was good.
Yeah. Actually, I think it had Imagine Agents. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's.
But you know, stuff like that, and Hypernaturals. They branched out into superhero stuff. But yeah, they're doing some interesting stuff, especially with the acquisition of Archaea, and you know, putting out their stuff as well. So
it's time to no longer be humble. It's time to be out there and, you know, letting the world know what you have and what you can do.
Yeah, I agree. So
hopefully Levitz can do that, because, you know, back before DC went perfluy, he was the guy that, you know, he was the guy that had it on top.
Yeah.
For a long time. You know, people tend to forget Marvel hasn't always been the like major comic company. It used to be an ebb and flow between them and DC.
Yeah. And, you know, DC was first, too, so.
DC was definitely first out of the gate, and, you know, and under his reign, they were first in a lot of things, and, you know.
Huh?
Jeanette Kahn was great and all that, but, you know, you have to go back to Paul Levitz to really see a time when DC was really on top.
Yeah. Anything to add?
Well, Levitz is pretty much a consummate professional businessman in comics, and you know, it's no surprise, you know, what you're saying, John, that during his reign at DC it flourished. And you know, was fan friendly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when I saw this news myself, you know, my initial reaction was I was surprised that, you know, he left DC, and then, you know, seeing what he was doing, where he was going, I think is a brilliant part on whoever at Boom talked him into joining them, because again, you are getting a treasure trove of professional acumen on how this business works. And if anybody can change it or bring it to that next level, which is what you guys are talking about, because we're looking at Boom as a company that has hits and misses. I think with Levitz on the board, you're going to start seeing a much more steady stream of eclectic titles that are going to be big winners. And I think that's what he can bring to it and bring it up to that Image caliber.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think the only reason why Levitz left DC, it wasn't so much that he chose to leave, is they kind of restructured as DC Entertainment. And so it was kind of like if Brant decided this podcast is going to be Zone 3, it's like, okay, there's only room for 3. Gordon, you're the least important, so you're fired.
I'm sorry about your birthday. Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Gordon Demowski, ladies and gentlemen, the Eeyore of Zone 4.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so Gordon mentioned Image earlier, and the current publisher of Image, Eric Stephenson, caused a bit of a stir across the internet with this speech he made at the Comics Pro retailer summit thing I forget what they officially call it, but it's where all the retailers and the publishers gather and talk about their plans for the coming year and all that stuff. And he stood up and made a speech, and in that speech, he kind of called out the bigger companies for a lot of things. And
about time.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same thing we fans have been calling him out for the last 10 years.
Yeah, and he didn't stop there. I mean, he called out
he called everybody out.
Dark Horse and IDW level companies too. I mean, still the big five there, but yeah. So, what did you guys think about this speech, John?
I was pretty much like, good on you, dude. Because it is a lot of the stuff we've been saying, you know. It's like people read stuff that you don't think they read. They read Saga, they read Rachel Rising, they read Fables. You know, those are the books they read. They're reading stuff like, you know, some of the weirder, more fringe Image stuff. And people aren't reading the big three anymore. Or, I think he didn't say it implicitly, but he may have even been calling his own company out. It's like, you know, like you said, Walking Dead is successful, but, you know, stuff like, you know, he called Transformers out, which surprised the heck out of me.
He called Star Wars out.
He called Star Wars out. He called G.I. Joe out. You know, it's...
Licensed properties in general, he called out.
Yeah.
Right, because his argument was, why can't we get back to being the creative force that they mimic us and not the other way around?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what Image is doing now. And more, you know, I mean, he not only talks the talk, this guy's walking the walk. We, you know, all of us, you know, in past episodes have, you know, in talking about what we like, what's on the market, and promoting independence and originality and stuff like that. And guys, it's no accident that the majority of the stuff that we keep going back to is Image titles.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, real quick, a little sidetrack on the licensed properties. I understand what he's saying, and I do agree to a point, because he said, you know, Star Wars comics aren't the real thing, and I get that. You're never going to get the same experience out of reading a comic that you do see in those original 70s movies. It's just not going to happen. I understand that. At the same time, let me say this, Gordon, you can make your point. At the same time, I will say that the G.I. Joe comics Larry Hama wrote are better than anything that's ever been on a screen. I'm sorry. But go ahead, Gordon.
Well, I was going to kind of flip your argument around to talk like this. I don't think he's talking about the experience of screen versus comics. When you consider that pretty much Marvel and DC do licensed comics of their own characters, where it's no longer about just focusing on comics. It's comics as ancillary to other media. So I think from that perspective, I think he's dead on.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's, you know, so I didn't see it the way you're seeing it. Not that you're wrong, it's just I kind of saw it as, I really like the fact that he called out how women are reading comics, and yes, women are not just reading fables. They're reading other kinds of comics. I am so freaking glad a comic publisher stood up and said this stuff out loud, because if I were Dan Didio, if I were Axel Alonso or Joe Quesada, I'd be thinking, oh crap, how do we step it up? Because I think what Stephenson's really trying to do is kind of go, you know what, Image is not, we're not those other companies. If I were to do a proposal tomorrow for a series, Image would probably be one of the first places I would go to see if they publish. Because it seems like they really are about putting out a diverse range of comics that are very creator intensive. And the thing that I like most, and Stephenson kind of hinted at this, and I'm kind of pulling this out of air when I say it. With Image, a creator gets to end their comic, because he talks about the number ones and the reboots and everything else. With Image, if I wanted to do like a 13-issue comic and end there, I could do that. And I think these are words that needed to be said, They needed to be said out loud, and I for one am grateful that a publisher finally gets it.
Yeah, and I'll commend him too for standing up, not just saying it in public, but saying it amongst his peers, amongst those other publishers, in the same place and everything, and having the guts to stand up there and do that. And whether you agree with everything he said or not, I think he made a lot of valid points, like we've pointed out here. And I know some publishers have kind of retorted and tried to defend their product, and of course they should. They would. That's, I would, But you have to, like Gordon said, I think they have to stand up and take notice of the points that he made and understand, because of all the support that this speech has gotten in the fan base, understand that that's how we do feel, and that something does need to change.
I only really had one small issue with this. At the end, he put a lot of the onus of changing things on the retailers.
Yeah.
My thought is the retailers are the people that have been keeping comics alive, essentially. To say, okay, you need to be doing more, I would flip that back and say, hey, the companies need to be doing more for the retailers. The companies are the ones that need to, make it easier for them to host book workshops and book clubs and, to be more inclusive. It shouldn't all be on the retailer to have to do everything and pay for the books that come in.
Right.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that, because as much as the publishers might want to change, ultimately the retailer, it's their space, and I know people who own retail spaces as you do. Being inclusive in a space versus being not welcoming, that is precisely, if you're running a store, you have control over that. My friend Terry, who runs a comic shop, there were certain books that he knows if they sell below a certain point, he does not stock them. And he takes the time to learn what his audience's tastes are. And I think too often what some retailers do, and it's true in Chicago, and I'm sure it's true in other cities, for every well-informed retailer, you got the guy who's not going to list trades because he wants to sell back issues, or all he's going to sell are Marvel and DC because, let's face it, he doesn't want to worry about, he knows he can sell 5 Superman versus 1 obscure Image title. So I do think retailers have a lot more power, and the onus needs to be on them to make sure that they are reaching the widest possible audience. It doesn't do Stephenson any good to put out diverse books if a retailer says, screw that, I'm not going to buy those books, I'm going to sell Superman. I'm going to sell more Superman, I'm not going to sell a book that might actually be risky.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that completely. My thought is that he's asking even more of the retailers. To me, the retailers are already doing everything he's asked. Or the good retailers are. I'll preface this.
Right.
The good retailers are. The ones that care. The ones that actually deserve the name comic shop and not just pop culture location, which we have both types here where I live. But no, I completely agree with that. I think he's asking more, or maybe he's not asking more, but he's suggesting more. And my thought is, well, it's a two-way street. Make it easier for them to be more inclusive. Make it where, it's a constant fight to get books sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's more a Diamond thing, though.
Yeah, well, that's a Diamond thing. And, well, it's the lateness of comics thing, too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree with what he's saying, but maybe I'm disagreeing with the approach.
Well, I think one of the things that I appreciated a great deal came at the end of his talk about growing market.
Oh yeah.
And I tied that in with this whole retailer situation, because if the retailer is going to be so narrow-minded of looking at today's bottom line and just keep buying Marvel and DC, that market isn't going to grow.
Right.
And we've proven that, okay? Because comics audiences have dwindled in the last few decades. The resurgence that's coming about now that we're seeing that he talks about, women coming into the market to become fans and whatever, is really tied to fresh, original material.
Mm-hmm.
So that it becomes incumbent on retailers to understand if they want more people coming into their doors, they better get with this program of expounding their product line.
Right.
Because if they just keep pushing Marvel and DC, which is the safe bet, then the safe bet is the audience isn't going to grow.
Right.
It's going to go the other way.
And I do agree with him that, yeah, it actually pains me to see comics in kind of multi-thing stores. You know, like a Target or a Walmart. They don't belong there. You know, I mean the old multi-pack comic things where they would throw like 7 or 8 comics in a bag and close it up, and that I don't mind. But Target and Walmart have no idea how to present comics.
I'll agree with that.
They just throw them in with the books, with magazines, whatever. I mean, I'm totally fine with the discount baggy things they used to have. They don't really do that anymore. I actually miss those. But yeah, like new first run comics, they get thrown on the shelf next to Men's Health and storage option Marie Claire, whatever magazine.
Yeah.
They have no idea how to present comics in a way that people are going to want to look at them.
Yeah, that's true. I do agree with that, and I do miss the spinner rack of the 3 packs as well.
Yeah.
I think that was the best way to do it, except for all ages in the checkout line, like your Archie Digest or whatever. But at the same time, I think it's, I don't know. I kind of try to look at the positive of them being in a more general area, but at the same time, I agree. I've seen. When they used to have them in the Krogers and stuff around here, they would just be thrown haphazardly. They'd be all ripped and bent, and where kids kind of flip through them or whatever. So.
Yeah, I mean, my first comic experience was buying them off of a spinner rack in a grocery store.
Yep, mine too.
The days of the spinner rack, that was fine. That is an okay option for presenting comics, is the separate spinner rack. But now they're just sort of this afterthought, and because of the nature of floppy comics, they tend to, after a little while or being pushed around or whatever, they tend to flop.
Yeah.
Honestly, they tend to bend over.
You know what? I think would be the smart thing, because I think I know the Marvel does. I'm not sure if DC does or not, but a lot of their titles they'll release a digest version of it.
Yeah.
I think that's
not a
brilliant.
bad idea.
Yeah, I think that would be brilliant for supermarkets and stuff like that.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But I don't expect to see the latest image book sitting on that particular sitting on that particular shelf, and I don't see it being necessarily beneficial for them to get into that kind of area.
Yeah. You're definitely not going to see Saga or The Walking Dead there.
Well, yeah. I mean, God forbid some, child gets a hold of that, and then the supermarket never has comics again. So, that's the other issue of what can you carry, considering that, especially where they put them, they're extremely accessible to children.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you can't expect every cashier to sit there and go, oh, no, your child is far too young for this comic book.
Right.
when it's stuck in between the cereal and 8 pounds of hamburger.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on Stephenson's speech? Okay. Moving on. I'm going to jump ahead to our last headline there because it kind of ties in. DC, with their September event this year, are reintroducing the 3D covers that they did last year for Villains Month. On every single one of their titles, it's a 3D lenticular.
And this explains why we think Stephenson's speech is so darn important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, enough with the gimmicks. Give us comic books.
I agree. And on top of that, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, honestly, let's do something radical and write good stories that people actually want to read.
I would argue they're doing that too, but hey.
You'd be hard-pressed to make that argument.
Okay. Grant, let me kind of maybe reframe what John's saying in a different way. Name a good book that isn't written by Scott Snyder titled Batman.
There you go.
The Justice League books by Jeff Johns. Go on, those.
Good writing.
No,
good writing.
Hey, I'm enjoying the Justice League books and Forever Evil and all that stuff, so I think it is good. But no, out of those two writers, honestly, I would be kind of hard pressed in those two areas, the Justice League and the Batman books. Yeah. So.
You know what I'd like them to do?
What's that?
Take all these 3D covers and tear them off the comics and publish them as a one-time coffee table 3D covers from DC Comics. I think they're cool. I might buy that. All right.
Yeah,
but it's a gimmick. I'll buy the gimmick. Give me the freaking comic books.
Yep. Now, to be fair, last year they did release the versions without the 3D covers, but at the same time, they know their market. They know comic collectors. Most collectors
have to have them all.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
I'm sorry. I'd be real surprised if you could actually find someone who still calls themselves a comic collector.
I know several.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
That are still honestly collecting comics.
Besides,
you have to have everything.
Okay. Brant, do these collectors happen to hang out at a local tavern and are over 45 years of age?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say another thing. Looking at this cover, I mean, obviously, I haven't been reading Superman for a while, but it just visually, this cover makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know. They said that wasn't the final cover, so I don't know.
Well, good, because the little red floaty balls have no purpose except to be little red floaty balls to, I guess, give perspective to the cover.
Yeah. I don't know what that's about.
And why have an integrated window? It makes no sense.
For people listening to the podcast, the cover the guys are referring to shows Clark Kent, who in the process of the 3D, illusion, rips off his shirt, and, we see the S and everything else beneath it. I'd like to challenge them to do a Wonder Woman cover like that.
There you go.
Nice.
Except, oops, I forgot my suit.
Yeah. The other gimmicky thing, which I just saw your comment on there, Ron. gimmicks, and more gimmicks, right? Okay. The other thing is we already know that they are doing 2 weekly series this year. Batman Eternal, which everybody's been talking about, and then I think it was May Solicits, they announced a second one, which is the New 52 Futures End. Is another weekly series, both of them running concurrently at the same time. So, I just was totally redundant with that. But whatever. They announced that I believe it's either September or October, I think it's October, they are launching a 3rd weekly series, which means they will have 3 weekly series running at the same time. That's crazy.
That's just sad.
Tempt fate. Go ahead. Tempt fate. You know what happens when they tried to do this with the Forever Evil thing, and they ended up having to halt the whole thing because they got too far ahead of themselves. And things slowed up. If you were smart, hey, stick with what's working right now. You don't have to keep piling on new stuff every 5 seconds.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, no, I was just going to say, you want to draw people to your books. You want to make the books, people read the books. Make them interesting. Make comics that people are going to review and talk about and find interesting.
Yeah.
I think as a community, we've grown up quite a bit. We're over the gatefold and golden boss and, all that other stuff. We're bored with that now. We want stories. We want books.
Yeah, and that's another thing that bothers me about what Didio said in that announcement was that he feels like the industry needed an injection of some sort that on the level of the reboot that they did. And I'm like, it's been 2 years since your reboot, and you think you already need another big thing like that? Really?
The injection is Valium. That's what they've injected. Because it's putting everyone to sleep.
Here, if Dan Didio's listening, you know what your books need? You know what they need to be injected with? Consistency and creativity. If you tell us good stories and be consistent in delivering good stories, we will continue to buy. Because what they're doing is they're going for the short-term spike. They're not going for performance. It's like, it's like I could drop a series of F-bombs right now that would cause us to spike in profanity, or I could lay them out over the course of another series of episodes. It's not going to have the shock value if I'm just dropping F-bombs in one episode, but it maintains a consistency that people know, hey, this might be an episode where Gordon drops an F-bomb, just as a metaphor.
Exactly. That's true. And, it's the same thing with Marvel, and it's the same thing Stephenson was saying, with all these, renumbering and starting back at number 1 for, every couple of months. So, go ahead, John.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, when Gordon said the word performance, it made me think of kind of a good analogy for this. It is like just showing one act of a play.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just showing one act and then the play's over.
Yeah, show Act 2.
Or show Act 2, even better. Show Act 2, you don't know what happened before, you don't know what's going to happen after. It's just the middle.
Right.
That's all they're giving us right now is the middle.
Yeah, the climax.
Yeah, they're not even giving us climax. They're giving us build-up.
Right, true.
They're giving us if you use the theater term, they're giving us the rising arc.
Yeah.
If you wanna use climax in its other context, this is foreplay.
Yeah, that's
they're giving us foreplay, and that's it.
Yeah, then they start over again.
No, John. Well, to bring this to a whole different level, it's not foreplay, John. We're just being screwed.
No kidding. Just being screwed.
Yeah, I got to throw.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Right.
The irony of Image being the one saying this is nuts, we need to stop it.
Yeah.
I think is just beautiful.
Somebody call him Honest Morissette. This is irony.
Exactly.
What everybody said here, I'm totally in accord with. I find it frightens me to some degree because it's like at one point comics, and we got to go back to the 70s and maybe early 80s, where the comic industry was concerned with the video market and gaming and all this good stuff. And, how do we compete with that? How do we compete with the flash pop, the gimmicky games that kids held in their hands? And I think that was one of the divergent paths that the industry took in creating multiple covers and 3D covers and crossovers and this whatever, was to continuously keep hyping the comics. Mm-hmm. Not once a summer or once a year, I mean, when I was a kid growing up, the old comic formula was that you had one annual at the end of the year, which was a big giant book, and even that was something to look forward to.
Right.
But that's the only specials you had. All right, and look, I'm not trying to label everything. All I'm trying to say is so that this constant flash pop, gimmicky attack of young readers today is basically creating a generation of attention deficit disorder. All right, it's like if these kids don't get a fix every week, they'll walk out the comic shop and we'll lose them as an audience. Whereas the inverse of what Stephenson said in his speech was, let's write great comic book, good stories, good artwork that people will want to appreciate, will read, will come back next month. All right, we'll slow the pace down a little bit to good storytelling and forget the gimmicks. And John and Gordon both said it before we came back into the subject matter. But there is that irony of ironies. That image of the early '80s was as much as flash bang pop as the rest of them were, and it's a weird situation that in the history of comics, Stephenson and his administration have come along and are now pushing us towards something that's better. All right, and hey, those kind of thing happens, but DC and Marvel just cannot keep the special event things going. The metaphor I come up with all the time is it's a Twinkie, guys. Okay, I mean, it tastes good while you're eating it, but it has absolutely no beneficial value to you whatsoever.
Well,
Yeah.
Ron, it's an old story. When radio came out, the newspapers were going, well, how are we going to keep people?
Mm-hmm.
Television, radio was going, how are we going to keep people? The same with video games, comics, everything else. And you do what they have done. You become very good at what you do.
Right.
And people will come to you.
Yep.
If you give them crap and fireworks and noise, they will look at you, but they will not stay with you.
Yep.
Of course not.
Exactly. And I think that's the problem, with, you mentioned younger audiences and kids and the whole attention deficit disorder thing. You look at comics today, and they are written for adults, by and large. But I feel like the marketing approach is the exact opposite. They are trying to reach, I think because of that flash pop thing, they're trying to get people's attention. And what I'm trying to say is I think they're generalizing the audience that they're trying to reach and not realizing that, trying to think how to put this. I don't know. I just totally lost my point.
Well, no, I think I know what you mean. You can't write specific and then market generalized.
Yeah, thank you.
You can't write comics that are supposedly for an adult audience, but then try to market them next to the toys, or market them as you would market toys. Like
Amen.
One story I put up that kind of shook me a little bit as a former. I will say I'm a former collector now. I don't collect comics as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that really kind of shook me is General Mills and DC have gotten together, and they're putting comics in the cereal.
Yep.
And my thought is, why? This would be something that you would do at the beginning of something. But why would you put established comic titles in your cereal? This is a 1950s thing. This is decoder rings and badges and stuff like that.
Well, John, they have to get rid of all of those unsold copies.
There you go.
True.
You got it, good.
Well, that's it. You know, they made the mistake about telling retailers they could send them back.
Yeah.
So they have to do something with them, I suppose. But yeah.
And when you look at the fact that the way people consume media has changed, I could see it if they said, okay, well, in every box of cereal you're going to get a code that allows you, you get Comixology free and you get a free digital comic or a free sampler. I do think right now, both Marvel and DC, their strength is they're the best known. They're the big two.
Right.
Their biggest weakness is they are still operating off a model that is very much based in old ways of thinking. Right. It's based in, when you have an editor-in-chief who says at one point, we make comics for 45-year-olds, that's the person you need to fire.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing the research to figure out who's your key reader. And if your key reader is 45-year-olds, you have to either say, okay, this is who's reading us. We can't appeal to anyone else, or how do we change our product and our message in order to get some of those younger readers on board? Because those younger readers, they're not picking up comics. They're playing the video games. They're watching the DVDs. They're doing everything else but buying the comics. They're probably more likely downloading the comics illegally, because it's probably much more economical to spend, and I'm going to assume it's like $20 to get Injustice or to buy a video game or a DVD than it is to spend the $3 to buy the crappy comic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, that's the problem, too. They screwed up from the very beginning as far as digital goes. Marvel and DC, as far as I'm concerned, have only made a very tertiary move into the digital area. Mm-hmm. The reason being, iTunes was already set up. The norm was 99 cents a download, which now with inflation has become probably $1.99. But still, that was the norm. When Marvel and DC come in, they immediately slap the cover price on the digital download.
Which makes no sense. Which is an immediate turn-off to your digital audience.
Yep.
You would get more downloads and therefore make more money if you stayed with the norm and did it as 99 cents or $1.99 or what have you, instead of slapping that $4 cover price on there. That is what is chasing people out of buying floppy comics, is because it's $5 for 22 pages plus ads. That is not a cost-effective idea.
No.
You can, I'm thinking as someone who would create independently as well. Very seldom do you see, even with the independent creators, books that are that high. Because they know they won't sell. And the major companies should get that through their heads as well. I mean, look at the difference in numbers between the 1990s and now. A major selling book now is probably about 100,000 copies.
Yeah.
And that's like, high up there, major, whatever.
Right.
Not 10, 20 years ago, that was 1 million.
Yep.
So there has got to be somebody in one of these companies that can do math.
You think.
And realize that, hey, we're screwing up somewhere because we lost 750,000 readers.
Yep.
So it's extremely frustrating as someone who honestly got priced right out of collecting comics. And it's frustrating from a standpoint of someone who is genuinely in love with the industry and just sees the industry just doing stupid thing after stupid thing, I mean, it's almost a shame to call myself a DC person these days. And honestly, I'm kind of not, because I'm not reading DC's books.
That's true.
Because, one, it's no longer cost effective for me to buy all the DC comics. Even though I quote unquote work in comics. And, two, it's all flash and substance now. It's all sound and fury signifying nothing. So it becomes more and more depressing as time goes on when you see that happening to the industry that you more or less devoted your life to.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've been dealing with comics since I couldn't read. Comics have been forever for me, and it's really frustrating to see them just kind of slowly killing themselves. Not even being killed by an outside force, but to see them slowly killing themselves in such a way where they will get to the point that no one will care anymore. And you're going to have these incredible characters that are just going to languish because they're owned by a corporation and nobody loves the work they're doing anymore. That's why you're seeing these mass exoduses to, Inafune, Valiant, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. There's the speech. There's the preaching speech for the day. Thank you. Good night. Tip your waitress.
Yeah, it puts a nice cap on it.
Yeah.
And that was an unexpected, quite a good conversation that we had there. I like that.
I get off a lot more on the Snyder thing than that.
Yeah. I don't know. What, Gordon?
I was about to say, I just woke up. Did I miss anything in the last 10, 15 minutes?
No, eat your cake. You're fine.
Eat your cereal, get your free comic.
Yeah, eat your cereal, get your free comic.
All right, so real quickly, we do have a few more headlines, and then we'll see where we're at that point. Shifting gears completely, did you guys get a chance to watch the full first trailer for Transformers: Age of Extinction?
Oh yeah.
No.
No? No, I don't care.
Yeah, I watched it, and I want that 2 minutes and 34 seconds.
Honestly, I thought it was really good. I'm really actually excited for this movie.
Well, I'm gonna echo Grant here because I haven't even seen Transformers 3 because I was
Lucky guy.
Yeah, but see, that's what I'm saying.
It was
I
better
was
than
getting
2.
tired of that cast in that direction.
Mm.
So, having missed that one, which I'll probably catch someplace, a DVD or someplace eventually. But watching, okay, this is going in a different cast, Mark Wahlberg, different direction, and just the mere fact that it starts out in the country,
Mm-hmm.
A farmer, and we're not in the big city anymore, and all this good stuff, and the way the trailer's laid out, that this is like years after the first trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Grant?
Yeah.
So that everybody knows Transformers are around, but they've been in hiding, or they just, went off and did their own thing. So that one sequence where Wahlberg goes, I think this might be a Transformer. It's like, I went, all right, that's a different hook. Yeah. And then I watched the rest of it. I like the trailer. I'm probably going to be very interested to see this one.
Yeah, completely different tone, completely different direction. I think they've kind of learned, kind of the general feeling of those first 3 films, which, I'm one of the few that really enjoyed them. Well, the second one, not great, but overall, the overall vibe of it was this wasn't quite what we wanted, and I think they've turned it around with this one. What didn't you like about it, John?
Let's say what I did like about it. Honestly, just the thought of this makes me want to call PETA because they're beating a dead horse here. Honestly, I'm I'm over this whole Transformers thing that they got going on. It's just not. It's not for me. I'll put it that way. I don't want to belittle anyone who's excited about this, but this has left my building. This is not for me anymore.
It's totally for me.
I'm just over the whole giant robot explosion thing. I was never a fan.
You hated Pacific Rim, didn't you?
I've actually not seen it, to be honest with you.
Neither have I.
You still my heart. Oh, please. Jeez.
So
I am planning on seeing Pacific Rim, but like Transformers is not my thing, so that's why I didn't watch the trailer. Unlike some people, I'm not going to watch something and start complaining about something because it's not my thing. I'd rather just leave it be.
Hey, I was trying to be nice about it, saying it's not my thing.
Okay, John, being nice does not include using the words beating a dead horse in casual conversation.
Well, I live in Kentucky. We have a lot of dead horses.
There you go.
But anyway.
A lot of horsey analogies here. There you go.
Yes, yeah. But anyway, I was never a fan of the Dinobots or Grimlock or any of that ridiculous stuff. So,
Come on, Brad. We're waiting for G.I. Joe meets Transformers, right?
Well, if G.I. Joe would, I'm not even going to go there. But I'm a G.I. Joe fan first, but I grew up on Transformers and G.I. Joe equally. So I mean, I'm still a big kid when I see Transformers, and even as cheesy as the first three films got at times, especially with that second one, which was just not very good. I don't know. I'm really, honestly, genuinely excited for this one. So.
Oh, there you go.
It just taxes my suspension of belief or disbelief. So, yeah, not for me, but if you love it, Mazel Tov. I hope you enjoy it. I'll buy you the popcorn.
Okay. All right.
All right. So moving right along.
Yeah. Shifting over to DC first, TV, and then we'll jump back to the movies real quick. TV, we get the first sneak peek of the Flash in costume. We just see his head, basically.
Barely
right.
a sneak peek, yeah.
His
I
head.
want to see the costume.
Yeah.
So do I. I mean, where's the rest of them?
Yeah, I mean, it gives him a chin finally.
Yeah.
But other than that,
it does. He does look better than I thought he would actually in the mask, though. So.
Yeah. I'm still apprehensive because he still looks so young.
True.
In this, so I really want to see what the costume looks like, whether or not they went for the molded muscle look or whatever. Right now, this is.
I'm praying they didn't.
Yeah.
Really.
Right now, this is a little reminiscent of maybe like an aviator helmet with a face mask on it. It's that kind of molded leather look. So who knows? I mean, it's not enough information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's a headpiece. It's not really a costume. Okay.
I will say I'm glad that they decided, or at least from the extremely dark look that they gave us, that they decided to kind of put the lightning bolts flatter against his head.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of making them stick out, Captain America wing style.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the same thing I liked about the movie Captain America helmet too.
Yeah.
They just kind of painted them on. Yeah.
They're flattened. I mean, they stick out a little bit. They almost look like a brooch on the side of his head. But it makes sense in that sort of thing. Having them stick out, it would just,
Well, I mean, at like 350 miles an hour as he's zipping by, one comes off and skewers it into the bystander,
exactly.
Yeah, are these supposed to get radio signals or something, and if they keep snapping off, what good are they? So,
right. Yeah, I think costume-wise, if they go for, like, the Daredevil movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, maybe.
Maybe not quite so obvious that it's, a motorcycle jacket.
Yeah.
Maybe eliminate the zipper somehow, or,
Yeah.
or kind of folded in or something like that where it's a little bit more smooth and aerodynamic.
Yeah, that'd probably be good.
Yeah, rather than, you almost look at Daredevil and you just figure someone's going to come up and grab the zipper and rip the coat off at some point, so.
Okay. And, moving to DC movies, Zack Snyder, he's been in the news for a couple of things here. First up, he's defended Eisenberg as his Lex Luthor.
Good luck there.
Yeah. And
Well,
he said,
I can defend Eisenberg as Lex Luthor.
Okay.
Okay. Have either of you gentlemen seen The Social Network?
I have.
Have
Have either of you seen Now You See Me from last year?
I
No.
did see that.
Okay. In both movies, Eisenberg plays kind of a arrogant, detached, slightly antisocial individual. So I think he would make, just based on those performances, I think he could pull off Lex Luthor.
Okay. I don't know. Everything I hear about this movie makes me very nervous.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking of, him and Now You See Me. He does come across as extremely smart, extremely arrogant. You're very correct there. But the thing that worries me is, he's obviously not physically imposing, but then Luthor was never supposed to be physically imposing.
Sure.
But he is supposed to be imposing. He is supposed to be someone who commands the room when he walks into it.
Yeah.
I have a little trouble seeing that with Eisenberg at the moment. Now, if he does something, he might pull something out of the bag here. But right now, I see him more snark than confidence.
Right, he reminds me of a Big Bang reject.
Perhaps, yeah. I'm not even that far. He's obviously got presence, but I don't know if he has command.
Yeah, see, for me, when I think of him in that kind of analogy, I don't see him as the guy that's turning heads when he walks in a room, that kind of, taking notice of him. I see him as the guy that kind of makes a jerk out of himself in the crowd to get the attention,
Right, yeah, Big Bang.
Yeah.
I don't even see him as that bad. I see him as the guy who walks in the room and has to do something to draw your presence.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He makes a jerk out of himself to get that attention. Yeah.
Not even be a jerk, but just to do something like cause an explosion, or
The thing I take offense from, though, guys, is even in the castings or whatever, okay, is this, I just wish that people like Snyder, who I am a fan of, okay, when giving out statements, all right, or whatever to the press, would take 2 seconds to think of what's coming out of their mouth, because one of the quotes in this press release, obviously given to the general audience or his critics or whatever, is, "You don't know the story."
Yeah.
And I sat back as a lifelong comic book reader who knows Lex Luthor inside and out and went, yeah, I do. Maybe you're the one who don't know the story. It's like, it's a ridiculous statement to make, all right?
You may not know his story. But
right. You might not know my version, whatever. But don't make a blanket statement that on its own weight can't stand.
Yeah, and the problem is everything we've heard about this possible story is not good.
Yeah, which is converse to the other thing that we have on him, which is kind of odd because he's the one that's usually the one accused of being the slave to the material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which
true.
I consider a compliment actually.
Yeah, when you're talking comics, you kind of have to be. Yeah.
The material is what you fell in love with in the first place.
Right.
Why not be a slave to the material?
Yeah.
Why not make it something that, if the story is good enough that it reaches that many people that it needs to be a movie, why would you change the material?
Right.
For him to say you don't know the story means that he's not operating within the established material.
Of course.
Right.
Right.
He's gone off in left field somewhere which is odd because that's not normally his game plan.
Well, I mean, I think it was different with Watchmen and 300 because those those are not mainstream properties. I mean, they are, but they're not. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Well, what I was going to say is, with both Watchmen and 300, it would have been idiocy to change the material at all because they were cinematic within the construct of the comic book form.
Right.
They were essentially storyboards.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Follow them
completely. They were unique creator visions.
Yeah.
Right.
They were also finite stories.
Well, that too. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So with Superman and Batman, I mean that's a little bit different. There's been so many.
Very open-ended. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. But in that part that you linked us to with he mentioned Terry Gilliam, who apparently had a completely different movie he was going to do with Watchmen or something.
Yeah, Baron Munchausen Watchmen. Oh.
Exactly. Well, what my thought was, or what I had heard was, rather than have Ozymandias and Dr. Manhattan as essentially your bad guys, killing millions to save billions, he was going to introduce some sort of giant alien squid.
Yeah.
Or something like that was going to be the main bad guy focus, which, essentially, and at least in my opinion, cuts the heart out of Watchmen.
Yeah.
Because you have these two ultimately all-powerful characters that make this world-changing decision on their own, and it redefines what a hero is.
Yeah.
In that statement, it opens the door to that more ambiguous hero who isn't necessarily good, necessarily bad. He does what he thinks is best at that time. The anti-hero, which is a phrase I kind of hate.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and you were right, Ron, because in my mind, Terry Gilliam already made a superhero movie. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. And that is what a superhero movie in his hands would look like.
Exactly.
And, as far as the giant squid thing, in the comic there was that element, but it was like a footnote. It was
a MacGuffin. It was
exactly.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah. It was Ozymandias was using the giant squid to execute his plans. It wasn't like, oh hey, look, a giant squid.
Yeah.
And I just to go back to Gilliam for a second, Gilliam, I think, he's one of those directors for me where you can count the number of really good films he's done on one hand and still have some fingers left over. He's a little bit overrated. I read that script a long time ago and just thought, what the hell is this? It's really good fan fiction. It's really good Watchmen fan fiction, but, as much as I dislike the movie because it doesn't really do anything with the material except it's got a good production budget, but it just doesn't really, there's just something about it that still doesn't appeal to me. I'd much rather have Snyder's version than Gilliam's version.
Mm-hmm. Right. I do too. I am a real supporter of Snyder's Watchmen, and I still think that as time goes on, it's going to continue to grow in the estimation of comic fans.
Yeah, and as far as the squid element of it, just to put that out there, that only worked in the comic because it was a comic.
Right.
There's no way in the world of Watchmen in live action that could ever work. I don't think.
No, it's like the giant spider thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's once again John, whatever his last name, Silver, whatever his last name was, giant spider, where he wanted to throw it into Superman, and it was deemed ridiculous, so he threw it into Wild Wild West.
Right.
Actually, John, you're getting it mixed up. John Peters is the giant spider guy. Joel Silver's the guy who dissed Snyder and talked about Gilliam's Watchmen. So just so you know, yes, Most executives are idiots, but I want you to give the credit to the right idiot.
Let's get the idiots correct here. And I mean, I personally like Terry Gilliam. I think he's a genius, but I think he's a very limited genius.
Yes.
Yes.
He's a genius at one kind of thing.
Yep.
And it's not comic book movies.
No, it's social satire.
Exactly. I mean, he's a Monty Python guy.
Time Bandits, Brazil.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, his stuff is satire. It's Jonathan Swift all over again. And it's biting, it's witty, and kudos for what he does. But he's a one-trick pony.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. All right. So that ends our headlines unless you guys got anything else.
No.
I think we've covered enough of that. All right,
yep,
so
let's get kicked off.
all right, so officially it is topic time.
Topic time.
It's topic time.
All right, so as Gordon kind of mentioned offhandedly at the beginning of the show, we were going to do Green Hornet number 10, but we didn't receive that review copies.
Yeah, they've been listening to our podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Dynamite.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, way to go, Dynamite.
So we decided to talk about a couple of other books, new number 1 issues that came out. One of them's from Image, one of them's from Dark Horse. 2 big name authors, and this will make sense why I was talking about those Audible suggestions earlier. One of them is Starlight number 1 by Mark Miller, and the other one is The Veil number 1 from Greg Rucka. So, which one you guys want to start with? Let's start with The Veil. We'll do that one first.
Okay.
All right. So, Ron, what were your thoughts on this one?
All right. Yeah, being a Rucka fan, thanks. Real quick. This is really something different. And again, we're going to go back to, how we opened the show this week, talking about Eric Stephenson and how comics can still stretch and be something new, fresh, and innovative. And Greg Rucka is, such an established writer who's not afraid to take chances, all right? So here's the basic concept, plot, whatever you have for the first issue of this. It literally begins in a metropolitan city in the subway, with a naked girl laying there by herself on an off track, and she's surrounded by rats. She awakens. She rises and starts mumbling. And as she's mumbling, she's doing it in a sing-song poetic fashion. Whatever words come in her head, she gets words that rhyme, and she just mumbles along and walks right out of this subway into this evening in this huge metropolis, with people walking all around, and again, she's totally stark naked. Well, she continues on her way until she comes across a gang of street punks, bunch of them, and they surround her immediately. I mean, everybody, this is lovely young naked women. They make crude remarks or whatever, et cetera, until this one young black gentleman, for whatever reason, doesn't like the rest of his friends crowding her and maybe, scaring her. So he offers to take her off the street, bring her back to his apartment, this rundown little cold water flat, put some clothes on her, and try to help her. There's this touch of humanity in this guy. And these are just the characters you're given in this opening chapter. I mean, she's still speaking in sing-song or whatever. He gets to his apartment. He puts clothes on her, and then, while he's off in one of the other rooms getting her something to eat or whatever, there's a knock on the door. She opens it, and there's the rest of the gang. And you know what? I'm not going to spoil it for people. I do not want to do that, all right? Because how this first issue ends is by far a climatic, cliffhanging ending. We're left with a bazillion questions, none of which got answered, and they shouldn't. It's the opening chapter, all right, guys? Personally, the art is by somebody named Tony, I'm going to brutalize this last name, Fedzula, all right? I love this comic, all right? It's got me hooked. Big time. I really want to see what happens next. Okay.
Awesome. Gordon, what did you think about it?
I like this. I like this book a lot. It's Greg Rucka is one of those writers who can do no wrong, in my opinion. I like the fact that he really does not throw a lot of exposition. He just throws us into the story. and it builds over a slow pace, but he doesn't, like, there's no very obvious atmosphere setting. The art has that nice smoky noir quality that I really like. This is a must-buy. You got to read this one, folks.
Okay, and I actually enjoyed it too, so I'll go to you, John.
Well, for me, a visually beautiful book. I love the art. It's incredible. I don't have enough, really, to say anything else about the story, other than Ron recapped the story very well. I will say the demonstration of what makes her different, shall we say, as to keep it unspoiled, was surprising and interesting. But other than that, I don't have enough yet to really have an opinion. Other than, it was really nice book to look at.
Okay.
So would you buy issue 2, John?
I would, just because I'm curious. It did enough to make me curious. It didn't do enough to, for me to say this is the best thing since sliced bread. But as I said, visual beauty in a book goes a long way for me. So based just on the art alone, I would buy another one.
Okay.
All right.
I'm in between you, John, and the other guys. I did really enjoy it, but I'm at the same point where I'm kind of undecided of whether this has really hooked me yet or not. I'll agree with everybody. The art is absolutely fabulous. It's very stylistic, but it's such a rich kind of stylistic. It's not abstract or that kind of in that kind of direction. It's very rich, very nice tones. Nice quality to it. The story, it's kind of leaves you hanging. And that's the way it hooks you into wanting to know more. And I appreciate that about Rucka's writing. He kind of tends to do that a lot. And I definitely want to see what happens next, but I'm not quite there to where it's I gotta have this yet. So, but I think overall we've got a positive vibe on it, right?
No, yeah, definitely. I would call this a cleaner David Mack style of art, without the multimedia aspect to it, but very much his line work and his use of color and shadow.
Yeah.
Very David Mack-esque in the artwork itself. And, intriguing enough just from the little bit we get to go to issue 2, but, I can see this, if it continues in this vein, it's going to lose people. So they'll need to build, but yeah,
it's clearly a mystery. And
it's clearly an issue 1, obviously.
Right, and it satisfies that clear objective of wanting you to pick up the second issue.
Yeah.
So I think all of us are unanimous in saying, yeah, we want to pick up the second issue. So that's a plus for the Veil by Dark Horse.
Yeah.
We will revisit this, shall we say?
Yeah, and one quick point about the art before we do move on. I don't know if you guys read the afterword by Greg Rucka. He was talking about the concept of the character, how he's had it in the back of his head for 20 years, and it was when Scott Alley, editor at Dark Horse, put this artist's work in front of him and said, "What about this guy?" And that's when it clicked for him. So it was a perfect marriage for this story with that art, so I thought that was a cool story.
Oh, it is a guy. I was kind of hoping it was a female creator with the name.
Well, I'm assuming. I don't know. He didn't say. He referenced them by name, so I don't know if it was a guy or girl.
Yeah, because it does have a somewhat feminine quality to it. I will say that.
Yeah. Well, it is Tony with an eye, so it very well could be a female.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay,
All right.
and now, our second book.
Yeah, Martin Millar, however you prefer to pronounce it.
Millar.
Starlight #1, published by Image, of course, through his Miller World. This is the expansion of the Miller World universe, he says. So, anyway, this this was kind of an homage to a kind of a John Carter Mars / Flash Gordon story. I know John's laughing because he wants to call it a ripoff.
Homage?
But again, we'll just go around that same order. Start with you, Ron.
Okay, all right, thanks. This can't be any more different than Veil, all right, than Night and Day are, all right, which I liked. It caught me off guard. I'd heard about this book. I'd seen a little advanced illustrations. So right off the bat, let me just say, if it's dealing with retro, pulpish science fiction, and guys, that's up my alley. All right, this is the kind of stuff I like. So I found the art, and the artist, who by the name is Goran Parlov, changes his style from the Earth sequences in the book to the Buck Rogers and John Carter ripoffs.
Right.
And those had a very Mobius feeling. So Parlov is probably a European artist, and I appreciated that a great deal. We don't see enough of it in American comics. Now, as for the story itself, all right, let me give you, a Reader's Digest plot outline. Imagine, if you will, John Carter, basically went to Barsoom, had his adventures, but prior to going, was in love with this woman back on Earth. So no, he didn't marry, Deja Torres, and although she wanted him to stay with her, he basically came back to the Earth and married his sweetheart. Now, if you take that proposition into a story, well, obviously, he's back on Earth telling people he was in outer space. He met aliens and beautiful princesses and sword-dueling villains and whatever. Oh, naturally, people think he's absolutely crazy. All right? So the story jumping back and forth actually picks up on Earth with him in his twilight years because his wife has died of cancer. And now they've raised a couple kids who pretty much end up to be jerks.
Yep.
They're young men who are off on their own, and nobody knows what to do with Dad, as if they have to do anything with him, all right? And that's the life he's leading, because nobody ever believes his stories about his adventures as a young man on these other planets. Well, that whole element caught me by surprise, and is what I liked about this book, all right? I liked the human pages, the human story, a great deal. I liked his undying loyalty and love of his wife. I loved how cinematically Millar really moves this thing fast, to the point of the funeral, a flashback to that one day in their bedroom when she feels a lump under her breast. All right, I mean it's adult, it's very succinct, and it moves really quickly. I read through this thing like in 5 minutes and was absolutely entertained by it. Again, no spoiler alerts. The ending was what I wanted to see happen, and it did. So not so much of a surprise. I think maybe the four of us could have written this. But again, I appreciated the human element here, guys, all right? I appreciated, I mean, hey, look, this guy looked like he's my age, all right? His hair is as gray and white as mine, all right? So, there was a little... So, yeah, well, okay. There was that empathy with me as a reader. I could identify with who this character was and what his life was about. So I'm giving this thumbs up. I like issue number 1, and I'm really going to be intrigued as to where they go with it.
Cool. Gordon, what'd you think? Gordon? Okay, John?
Okay, guys.
Okay,
guys.
Hilarious.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to call my attorney, make sure I can say what I can on the air. How do I best put this? Let me just say, I think typically as a writer, Millar's full of himself. I think he's one of those writers that really doesn't like comics, but he's good at writing comics. So when I read this, I was actually surprised at how much I liked it. I think there's a real heart behind it. I think there's a real empathy within it. And I think Millar doesn't do that usual thing he does of, hey, look at me, I'm being hip and cool and ironic and subverting forms from within, and look at me, ooh, I'm crazy, ooh. I think Karlov's art is really good. I was really surprised at how much I like this book. And normally when there's a Millar #1, I rarely buy Millar's books, and it's very rare that I want to read #2. And this is a book that I really want to read #2, because I get the feeling like Millar is, on some level, being forced to write differently. Whether he is or not, I don't know. But no, this one's definitely a keeper for me.
Okay. John, what'd you think?
Sure you don't want to go first, Brant?
I can if you'd rather.
No, well, I'm going to have a vastly divergent view of this book, so...
Yeah, I know you are. That's.
If you want to speak nicely of it, go ahead.
Okay. I was surprised that I liked it as well as I did too. I was telling John beforehand that I had flipped through it, and it was okay. But once I actually started reading it, I really enjoyed it. Found myself enjoying it, and I appreciated the parallels to those classic heroes. And like you guys, I found the heart in the story very touching. The kids, they are jerks, Ron. I agree. I wonder if maybe they grew up with that stigma of their dad's this crazy lunatic, and that's kind of why they're like that.
Oh yeah, you get that immediately.
Yeah,
totally,
yeah.
right.
So, but I didn't like either one of them. But no, I mean, I thought it was everything you guys said. I pretty much agree with. I think I like the change between the art styles. I like the quick paced, story of it, and the way it ended was how it should have ended. And I'm curious. I want to see what happens next. So I will say one thing about. I read the afterword by Mark Millar, and I do like the art, but he stated that this was the best art he's ever seen in a comic, which I don't agree with at all. Whatever. So,
okay. Just being humble, isn't he?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, right. Okay.
All right. Go ahead, John.
Well, as I said, I'm going to be vastly divergent from my colleagues on this. My initial thought when I first even just looked at the cover was, Mark, you're going to keep writing this story until you get it right, aren't you? Because to me, it was a compilation of so many other things. In my mind, I don't care about these characters. I don't care about them at all. This is, I look at the first couple of pages, and I'm immediately seeing, Little Nemo meets Flash Gordon with the artwork. It's very French, as Ron said, kind of Mobius artwork. I've seen this before. I've seen the older character who was the major adventurer in his youth, and now is kind of down on his luck, or I've seen that character before. It felt like they almost glossed over his wife. His wife had a few things. I feel no remorse for her death because I don't know her. She is 2 or 3 panels on a page. And I feel nothing for this woman. I don't feel his remorse at all. He seems like a shut-off character to me, which I know is part of, dealing with death. I've obviously dealt with death a lot in my life before, but he seems too stoic and too kind of cut off. The minute his children said, sorry, we can't make it to the dinner, Cats in the Cradle jumped right in my head. The song Cats in the Cradle just
no, you're
in
right.
my head.
No, you're right. But they come across as spoiled brats, both of them.
Well, it comes across as they have their, they have their lives and their family now, and they move on.
Screw you, Dad.
Yeah, essentially, it seems a little bit like a screw you, Dad, but a little bit like, he's trapped in some sort of time bubble I almost feel like he's trapped in the 50s at this point. I mean, even the point where he's talking to the grocer. I go to the same grocery a lot and recognize a few people, but I don't hand them a list and say, "Can you help me buy my groceries?"
I thought that was a little odd too. I will admit.
Yeah. The kids seem like 1950s scamps. It's like, is it true they put a probe up your anus? And I think a lot of my problem here was the jumping around. I like the interspersal part of seeing him in his heyday and seeing him now. But I almost wish they had done it page to page rather than half page to half page, because there's just too much. I don't feel anything for this guy yet, and I think that's my main problem. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of my problem with a lot of Millar's writing. Is it takes me a long time to give a crap about his characters. And that's especially true with this one because, I don't give a crap about this guy. And I knew the spaceship was going to show up at the end. I knew the spaceship was going to show up at the
Spoiler.
end. Yeah, sorry. There's a spaceship at the end, kids.
Well, to be fair to John, in the description for this book, it also talks about how it's for one last job. So it's not really a spoiler if they telegraph it.
True.
Well, look at the cover, for God's sakes. You see the ships flying over old him and young him. Yeah. So there are spaceships in this book. Get over yourself. But, honestly, it's just, the book was pretty, I guess, but it's the kind of pretty I've seen before. There's nothing new here for me. This is, I won't use the word ripoff because that is mean and that is not a professional word to use. I don't even know if I would use the word homage.
He definitely borrows.
But it definitely borrows from a lot of other sources. And it's honestly, for me, a story that we've seen many times. And what I need from issue 2 is to show me something different.
Okay.
Because right now, go ahead, what were you going to ask?
Would you call it derivative?
I don't want to label that, I don't want to throw that label on it.
Okay.
I will say it definitely borrows, and it's definitely something that we're not covering any new ground here. For me, this could have easily have starred could have easily starred Mr. Incredible. Could have easily starred an aged Batman. Could have easily starred like an old Buck Rogers, an old Flash Gordon, or any number of older heroes. You could almost take any Golden Age space hero from any company and plug him into the story.
Yeah, but I kind of think that was the point.
Yeah.
Well, if it was the point, then he made that point well. But
I'm surprised, John, that you
he made that point too much.
Even suggested the possibility that you're going to pick up issue 2. That surprises me.
Well, like I said, I'm one of those people who will give a book a few issues before I dump it. I don't hate it. I just don't see anything that I haven't seen a million times before. Right down to one of the characters having an eye patch. And it's almost like central casting here. Eye patch, epaulets on the shoulders, red cape. It's, I'm watching a 1940 serial in comics here.
Yeah.
This could be an Errol Flynn movie, honestly.
Well, as we're talking about the book, I find I'm sitting here, my imagination is like going off on a sidetrack about if I had the ability to cast this, how would I have casted this first issue? And I think in doing that mentally, guys, it gave me a real hint as to what the plot of this whole thing is, and that's I would have casted Bradley Cooper as the young hero, and made him, effervescent and exciting and thrilling and daring and all that, and then I would have casted Clint Eastwood as the older guy, who's now, pretty much a sour, stoic, leave me alone character, and I have to wonder if the real narrative plot here would be him recapturing that Bradley Cooper character.
Yeah, I think that's what he was going for. I think, honestly, I think we're viewing it differently, John, because I think his point was to say, if I were to write one of those classic stories that you're referring to, this is how
if I had Buck Rogers, this would be it.
I think, so either you like that or you don't. So
right. Well, maybe, like I said, for me, issue 2 is going to have to show me something different for me to want to keep it. Mm-hmm. It's going to, if he immediately goes back to the other place and physically regains his youth, I'm out.
Yeah, on the other hand, the spaceship opens up and out walks his 18-year-old daughter.
That could be a possibility. See, that would keep me there.
Yeah, I thought so.
That would, if somebody walks out, takes off the helmet, and goes, "Hello, Father," I would go, "Okay, a little bit Star Warsy, but you got me."
Yeah, that would be interesting. Hey, sons that don't love me, here's my daughter from the alien world.
There you go.
Who adores me and wants me to come back.
Right.
But if, as I said, if he goes back to the other place, he immediately gets his youth and vitality. I'm going to be like, thought, coming a mile away, out of here.
Yeah.
That's too much of a MacGuffin for me.
Yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, or he could go back to his home planet, stay the same age, and they're like, oh, crap, things have deteriorated since the last time you were here. We need you to help us fix this because our queen just died.
Right.
Would you come back, John?
Yeah.
Yes, I would come back because if he goes back there, old man, no longer in his prime, and has to battle, people who are in their prime,
mm-hmm.
and manages to somehow defeat them and save the world and all that stuff. And like Ron said, if he ends up having a daughter who is that he never knew about or whatever. Although that does kind of deflect the thing of him being so in love with his wife if he's getting down with the princess. But,
sure.
It could have also been one of those, well, I took your DNA sort of things and made a kid. But anyway, yeah.
But, see, what we're talking about,
yeah.
you guys remember that, and I wish I could remember the director's name now because it's going to drive me crazy. But do you remember the Sean Connery, Audrey Hepburn, Robin and Marion?
Yeah.
Where Robin Hood comes back as an old man?
Wasn't that John
Houston?
Houston,
No.
yeah.
No. It was a British director. But anyways, if you guys remember the flick, it's basically he's an old guy, and everybody expects him to be the hero to save them from, the Robert Shaw Sheriff of Nottingham.
And he can't.
Well, yeah, he does it.
But it's
right.
Yeah.
They have this long, drawn-out fight at the end, and it's these two senior citizens trying to bludgeon each other with swords.
Yeah.
They can't even pick up again, okay? So, yeah, it gets to be very, poignant as far as the reality and the romance clashing. And this could be what happens in the next, where this story goes. I mean, if he goes back to this alien planet as the old duffer, then it's the romance and the reality clashing, and that could be really interesting.
Richard Lester was the director.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, the James... Didn't he do some James Bonds?
He did Superman 2.
Mm-hmm.
He also directed Hard Day's Night and Help.
And he did the Three Musketeers,
that's what I was thinking of.
The two-part Three Musketeers.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, whatever his name was. But anyway, but yeah, that's where I will stick around for. But as I said, if he goes back and immediately becomes young virile dude, and his princess hasn't aged.
That's a cop out.
Today,
That's a cop. Right.
Yeah, his princess hasn't aged a day, and stuff like that. Then for me that's a cop out, honestly, because like I said, I've seen this before, and if you scroll down, which I didn't until just now, and look at him, they do have him in his costume, but as the old guy.
Yeah.
And see, I like that because I'm imagining doesn't fit like it used to, but that kind
right,
of thing.
right. Hey, this thing shrank or whatever.
Yeah, we'll tight around the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But and I kind of, as a character, the fact that he is still so big and buff and looks like he could bench press a car, I'm cool with that. He doesn't have to become a fat old guy.
Right.
But if he's running around and is not, if he doesn't show the signs of his age, if he's just suddenly this young, virile, devil may care, Adam Strange hero, the minute he gets back to the planet, I'm checking out, because that's just not, I've seen that. That's my problem with this entire book. I could encapsulate the whole thing in that one sentence. I've seen that.
Okay.
I've seen everything in this book in other places.
Yep.
Show me something new. That's my whole thing with it.
There we go.
All right. So that wraps it up. If you have read,
What do you say? Hey guys, time to wrap it up.
Yeah, that's.
Yep.
There must be a delay because that's what I was doing.
Yeah, well, people were breaking up, so it's definitely time to wrap it up.
Yeah, definitely. So both of these came out this week. If you've read them and you want to share your opinions, let us know. We'd love to hear them. All right, so before we get out of here, we'll go around the table, see what everybody has coming out, and going on. Gordon.
Okay, well, had a great time at Iditarod this past weekend. Real blast. But after last Thursday, after recording, we found out I am up for a Pope Award. Zeppelin Tales is up for Best Anthology, as well as Best Cover Art on the new Pope Awards, and I'll let Ron handle all the details, because I'm kind of 3 sheets to the wind, so I can't really remember them. But right now, I've got some stuff that I'm waiting to hear about publishing, but otherwise, right now, I'm just chillaxing, as the kids say. So there you go.
A woo and a who in your general direction, sir. A woo and a who.
Oh,
a
okay.
A yay, a clap.
Again, I'm
kudos,
3 sheets
whatever.
to the wind, so.
All right, let me speak in your language then. It's really cool that you got this award, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Oh.
All right, Gordon. You're on.
Okay. Let me explain that a little bit. For the last couple of years, there's been an award called the Pulp Arc Awards. This year, they changed their name. They've broadened their scope to allow the public at large to vote, and it's now the New Pulp Awards. And one of the categories is New Pulp Anthology, or Best Anthology of 2013. Gordon co-edited Zeppelin Tales with me from Airship 27, and that book has been nominated for Best Anthology of 2013, i.e. Gordon and I would share the award if it wins. So, hey, keep your fingers crossed for us, guys. And you can actually go online and vote if you want to help us out. Just Google New Pulp Award. They have the ballot there, and like I said, voting's till March the 12th. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed, and I was tickled pink that particular book got nominated. There were several other Airship 27 books that were nominated. Yours truly got nominated for a Best Short Story that I had published in another company, and Best Novella, which I had done. So exciting news this past week in the pulp world. Really happy about that. And speaking about the pulp world, last year while at the Windy City Paper and Pulp Show, myself and Rob Davis were interviewed at our Airship 27 table, a video interview which has just been produced, put together, and is now available online. Grant has the link. It's an 8-minute interview whereby I pretty much tell you what Airship 27 is all about, show you our table, et cetera, et cetera. So if any of you have ever been curious about the pulp world and conventions and stuff, check out that video. I think you'll like it. And that's what I got going.
Awesome. Very cool. John?
I don't have a lot going on right now. Just finished up coloring some stuff for Bill Nichols' Sparta Bay. So my coloring keyboard is free at the moment. But I am still very deeply entrenched in helping my wife create a charity comic book convention called River City Comic Expo. We have a lot of really cool people coming, but we still have room for more. So if you are interested, go to River City Comic Expo Louisville on Facebook, and you may register there for a table. Tables are $30 a piece, and all of that money, including the money for the silent auction and some other activities we have planned, goes to a charity called Fund for the Eyes, which gives materials and assistance to children up to age 21 who are blind and visually impaired. No one connected with this convention, which is mostly just my wife and I, will make a dime on this convention. Now, of course, all the vendors and anyone who signs up and sells things, they will, of course, keep their own money. However, anything that the con is doing, anything that we sell, the cost of tables, anything like that, every red cent of that goes to the Fund for the Eyes. So we are touting ourselves as the only for-charity comic convention, definitely in this area. So please check us out. If you are local or if you just feel like making a drive on May 10th from 10 to 6 in the Mid-City Mall. So it will be air-conditioned. May tends to get a little toasty around here. Although with, Stormageddon, who knows? We may have snow again that day. But,
God, I hope not.
me either. If we have any more snow, I'm thinking of swimming to Hawaii or something. I don't know. And I don't swim. So, but anyway, May 10th, 10 to 6, Mid-City Mall, Bardstown Road, Louisville, Kentucky. River City Comic Expo Louisville on the Facebook. So go check that out, and that's it for me. Oh, and of course, all my comic-related foolishness. You can catch me every day on comic-related. Right now, I'm doing motivational videos in the sketch video area. I've been doing that all week, so go over there and be motivated.
Cool. And for me, just a couple of things. I'm currently working on Jackhammer number 5. Jackhammer number 2 just came out last week, so if you missed that, go pick that up. Working on that. I'm working on Binary Gray issue number 7. No, that's already done. I don't know what I'm working on anymore. I'm working on another book for Assailant, and I think issue 8 pages are coming in now, so that's for Binary Gray. So, man,
He's working on so much.
I'm telling you. And of course, I'm still flatting this project for Larry Young, one of our faithful listeners. Hey, Larry, thanks for listening. The working title for the book is Nash and Miller. It's going to be a 12-page story. It's a murder mystery set in an alternate universe on a parallel Earth. So, very beautiful artwork, very detailed artwork, but so very beautiful artwork. So I look forward to that. More details, when it's released and all that stuff. And as far as comic related, I've been doing since this year, obviously. I've been doing these top 25 picks. At the beginning of the month, I'll pick all the titles or 25 titles that I think are interesting that people should check out. And then at the end of the month, I review them. So I've been doing that since January. I just put my picks up for March. So if you want to go take a look at that, it's Top 25 for March is the name of the article. Just search for it on CR. And, just the usual stuff. You guys know me, so.
Usual suspects. Okay.
Exactly. All right, so Ron, you want to take us out of here?
You sure do. Hey, we'd like to thank our sponsors once again, Audible.com. Please check them out. Go to audibletrial.com/Zone4Podcast for a free 30-day trial and book download. Mention Zone 4 when you do, please. We'd like to thank the official bands of Zone 4, the Ray Wall Band and Society's Play that you hear on the show each and every week. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for us, please send them along to zone4@comicrelated.com. We're also a proud member of the Comic Related Podcast Network. And as always, thanks for listening, gang. You are now leaving Zone 4.
Bye, everyone.
Good night, everybody!
Somebody turn out the lights.
Cause here he comes, the amazing Spider-Man. Four coloration proof jumping that's with Spider-Man.
This has been a Gonzo Goose production. Honk!